I have a lot of things I want to get off my chest. Well, enough is enough, and it's time for a change. Finally, The Rock has come back. I hate this idea that you're the best.
And if you're not down with that, we got two words for ya!
I'm the best in the world.
I fight at WrestleMania for the very, very small percentage of people that walk this planet and say I am proud to be, I'm sorry, a professional wrestler.
Oops, I'm breaking the fourth wall.
It's Podcast of the Immortals with your hosts, Matt Bush and Jimmy Bellamy.
All right, hey, welcome to Podcast of the Immortals. My name is Matt Bush. I'm one of your hosts, and sitting across from me is our other host,
Jimmy Bellamy.
This is our inaugural episode of Podcast of the Immortals. The name obviously comes from the Showcase of the Immortals, the show of shows. We are the show of shows now.
We are the show of shows.
Yes.
We are replacing the other show of shows.
Yes, which is WrestleMania. As it's our inaugural episode, we thought we'd just, get right into it. Kind of recap Raw from last night. They were in Nashville, Tennessee, of all places. And right off the start of the show, they had Paul Heyman come out, and I didn't really understand what he was talking about for most of the time. What do you think?
With the go-home show coming up, we have the Elimination Chamber PPV. It was a good way to start. I was excited, at least, when Heyman started the show. I knew it would bring a Punk appearance and hopefully further that Rock Punk storyline in a way. But with Heyman coming out to tender his resignation and then quickly doing about face, sometimes WWE storylines happen in a way where I think, where are they going with this, or what does this mean? Mm-hmm. I think it's done in a way that maybe they're not intending. They might want fans to wonder where they're going with it, but maybe not in the way that I was wondering last night.
Yeah, Heyman said a few interesting things, and I actually wrote them down because I'm a nerd.
And you have time to do that. Yeah,
because, I have no job and stuff. But he goes, I can see into the future, and something very bad is going to happen here. And he said, the sins of the mentor will fall upon the protege. And it's almost kind of like foreshadowing maybe a Vince McMahon retribution, or I thought it might lead... He might be talking about Lesnar turning on Punk.
Mm-hmm. This, like with a lot of WWE storylines, they might want you to think one thing and then, of course, do the bait and switch. To maybe the smart wrestling fan, which I don't claim to be, somebody might say that, well, this is obvious. Once Punk aligned with Heyman, and of course, anybody who follows it knows that Punk's entry into WWE, from his signing in, I believe it was 2005 to his debut in 2006, Heyman was behind him the entire time, mm-hmm. A big fan of his when very few people, if any, had any support for Punk. So people knew it was only a matter of time before Punk and Brock collided eventually, whether it was in a way as competitors, or if they were to align themselves in some way with Heyman once Heyman joined up with Punk as his mouthpiece. I don't know what's going to come of this necessarily. Now, to me, Sunday going into this, the easy thing to say is that Rock is going to retain the title, because I think anybody who watches, from the somewhat casual fan to the hardcore fan, will think that it's going to be Rock versus Cena for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania.
For the second time in a lifetime.
Yes, with once in a lifetime, until next year.
Part 2. Yeah.
I think that's what everybody is not hoping is. I don't know anybody who's really hoping it other than a couple of 8-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. But the scenario is that Rock will be champion, Cena will win it at WrestleMania, Rock will approvingly endorse Cena, so all the cool kids who boo him can stop booing him. But this match, WWE is always great for a twist. I could see myriad things taking place. In fact, I could see Punk winning the title and somehow losing it on a following Raw, or a triple threat match coming up. So to go back to what Heyman was saying, it might be foreshadowing for Lesnar to not, I don't want to say turn on Punk because they're not aligned, they haven't appeared together, but I could see Heyman turning on Punk in favor of Brock, or like you said, maybe it does involve Vince. It's going to be hard to involve Vince with him actually physically hurt and out with an injury, so I don't think there's any chance of him making an on-camera appearance.
Or Triple H.
And there you go, mentee and protege,
yes.
or mentor and protege with McMahon and Triple H.
I didn't even draw that parallel.
That's a very good point. That's probably what's going to happen. I don't think they're going to break up this Punk-Heyman duo. One scenario that I think you brought up to me last week, which... Oh, if we had a show last week, you too would have known this, but no.
Yeah, you guys missed out.
You were mentioning that you thought it was possible that... where was I going with this now?
I have no idea.
I completely lost my train of thought. It was something about a potential WrestleMania match involving Punk. And I completely forgot, so we'll move on. I'm getting old, so stuff like that happens.
Well, you are over 30.
Yes.
And I turn 28 tomorrow, actually. It's my birthday tomorrow, so
we're happy for
too.
you.
Yeah, I'm losing all my hair. Well, anyways, Punk comes out and talks to Heyman and basically changes his mind on the spot. Then they have a very overly close man hug for way too long, which was awkward for everybody.
You triggered my memory with man hug. I think it was you who mentioned it. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm just giving you credit. That Heyman had the Shield interfere at the Rumble match, which, of course, he did do that.
Yeah.
But that it was without Punk's knowledge. And that he was going to screw Punk because of his interaction with the Shield and Brad Maddox without Punk's approval. And that was somehow going to split them or divide them.
Yeah.
With the exception of course, Heyman denying that was him on video collaborating with the Shield and Brad Maddox. Other than that, I mean, it's clearly, obviously, it was him. So you don't know if Punk was just playing along or if, for storyline's sake, that's truly what he believes. I'm curious to see that's the best thing going for WWE. I think it's been that way for a while, that Punk has been the central character for the past year plus, and he should have been, I'd say, for almost the last 2 years. His July 2011 blast, which everybody talks about now, they didn't even give him the ball right after that, like I thought they should.
Huge mistake. And then Triple H beats him, just.
And that's not to get too sidetracked. That's one of the things that continues to perplex me, where WWE will make a move and you question what they were thinking. Twitter's a great resource to find a ton of opinions from people who are fans, people who have been writers for WWE in the past, and some people come up with some great ideas that I'd love to see get used, and they just don't. And I wonder if these ideas are even thought of with WWE people, or if it's just something that never even comes up.
I'm sure they do, but in the end, it's all about making money, and that's why we're going to get Rock Cena too, because it did so well last year. Vince was enamored with it. Like, there's so many more options that could make an even better Mania for me personally. But it's going to end up that because he knows it will sell, and that's all that matters right now. Is the storylines, they're okay, but they'll get to the end point, which is dollars. Where other storylines might be better, but they might not bring in as much cash. And that's what dictates it right now.
Again, I don't claim to be... I don't like being that contradictory fan. There are so many cynical people anyway in the world, but especially when it comes to professional wrestling. You have those fans who think they're smarter than the product, that they sit back and they're never impressed by anything that takes place. They're quick to cut down what's going on. They'll talk about what happened 10 years ago was far better. What happened 15 years ago was far better than the product today. They don't really give it a chance or any time to breathe. That being said, I'm not liking what WrestleMania seems to be evolving into, where it would be a big point for storylines to advance. You'd see corners turn, you'd see heel turns, titles changing hands, significant moments in the WWE, for lack of a better term, season took place at WrestleMania. Now it seems to be a standalone event where some of those storylines are even put on pause, where
for months.
You get Undertaker making his what's now just his one-time appearance for the year, at least when it comes to being in a wrestling capacity or a sports entertainment capacity. And there's no storyline with that. We've seen now in the last 4 years he's fought 2 people, and 2 years ago when he fought Triple H for that quote first time, where they failed to acknowledge the fact that Triple H lost to him, I think 10 years before that.
Yeah, that was the second Mania match between those two. They fought 3 times at Mania.
And people, that's the thing too. WWE, their blatant ignorance when it comes to their own history, when they want to pull the wool over fans' eyes and just pretend that this didn't happen. And granted, they cater to a much younger audience now, that unless they go do the dirty work of actually looking back on this and watching videos and reading up on it, they're not going to know that, and they're not going to care either. Just go to any WWE poll that they have. I mean, you pick the kid favorite, that one's going to win over and over. I mean, the poll they had last week was, will Rock eclipse CM Punk's 300 or 434-day reign, and it overwhelmingly said yes. I mean, you have to be kidding.
Of course, Rock. Why wouldn't he? He's the better wrestler, right?
and WWE forever has had that celebrity appearance at WrestleMania, and they've always done that for the mainstream media attention, whether it was Lawrence Taylor wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow,
Mike Tyson,
Donald Trump,
Cyndi Lauper. I mean, Snooki.
Cyndi Lauper, not Cyndi.
Oh, I'm sorry. My apologies, Miss Lauper.
I'm a perfectionist here when it comes to that. And Snooki, of course, pulling off that amazing backflip.
I was shocked.
I don't know how she did it. I don't think she could do that post baby though.
No.
But now, if it's going to be, this is the 1 or 2 times a year, or 1 of 2 appearances that The Rock fights, or Brock Lesnar fights, or Triple H fights, I don't want to get it. And I know they don't care about me. They're not going to change that, because they will sell. And I mean, I look at it as WrestleMania, to me, the word WrestleMania will buy the pay-per-view. That will sell the pay-per-view to me. I don't care what the card is, because I figure the card will be good. You would have to make a terrible card for me to not get it. So you can't tell me that Triple H Undertaker sold it for me. But again, they're not necessarily catering to me, and I understand that. They aren't catering
to you, and that's they're trying to get those extra 100,000 people who might buy it if the card is good enough. And they got those people last year. It was the biggest buy rate of all time, I believe. It was like 1.2 million. Yeah. So yeah, they're doing business, that's for sure. Well, anyways, back to Raw. After Heyman's love hug with Punk, we get Mark Henry coming out. He goes over on Khali, gives him the world's strongest slam again. He's looking strong after his return. Then he gave the world's smallest slam to Hornswoggle. Get some cheap heat there. Anytime you want heat, just do something to Hornswoggle and people hate you. And Mark Henry did it very well.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, that's.
I'm impressed with Henry. I can't stand the great Khali. I mean, he must be the world's nicest guy to be employed there for the last, I think, 9 years now.
Wow, has it been
8 or 9 years? At least 8 years. I remember an 05 house show, or an 06 house show where he was here. So that was 7 years ago. And I think he was with the company before that for at least another year.
I can't believe he had the strap at one point.
Yeah. And again, I've called the world heavyweight title the JV belt for a while, because you look at they kind of throw it on those guys where it's like they're not quite sure if they want to give them the WWE title, and it's kind of like it's the training wheels belt. Daniel Bryan, I think someday will be a WWE champion.
And should be.
And should be. But you look at, they gave Rey Mysterio the World Heavyweight title, that WWE, that 2-hour WWE title reign he had. I mean, I guess we can count that, even though Punk was the champion at that time.
Yeah, that was
when that happened.
SummerSlam.
And they had the second belt. But having the belt on Khali is, I guess, neither here nor there, but it certainly doesn't enhance the value of that title. But with Mark Henry, I'm impressed with his progression since... I think he's been with them since 1997, at least 98.
Sexual Chocolate.
He made that Olympic appearance in 96, and I mean, he was great as Sexual Chocolate, even when he was in the Nation. But Sexual Chocolate was that gimmicky comedy character. I've been impressed with him. He went away. He was in, I think it was 2 years where he was in OVW. Well after that, I mean, it was like 2000, 2001, around the same time Big Show had that demotion where he was gone for a while, where he had to get into shape and get fit and get his wrestling better, or get his wrestling better. If I could get my talking better, we'd be good here. But Henry, since his little ECW run, and I think his well-documented incident with Michael Hayes, Michael Hayes, I believe, referred to him as the N-word in friendly conversation, and other WWE people heard it and were upset with it and suspended Hayes for it. And shortly after that, whether it was related to it or not, Henry received a pretty large push. He became the ECW champion, and then he became the World Heavyweight champion, I think, within the next year. And at first, early on, I did not buy him as a World Heavyweight champion because I just saw this guy, this slow guy from his Sexual Chocolate days. But to me, now that he's gotten over that injury hurdle, which he has, that's slowed his career. Yeah. Shoulder injuries.
He was really cooking before he had to go out. He had to drop the belt. Big Show.
Yeah, and even before that, I think a few years earlier, he suffered a shoulder injury that derailed him for a while. Yeah. But now I believe him as a big-time guy, where in the past, Kane was a monster, I think literally and figuratively. Now, Kane has been through so many different phases where I see Kane as an upper mid-card guy, where I see Henry as a legitimate main event guy.
Yeah, he's in the Chamber coming up on Sunday, and if he won it, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, I'd be like, oh, well, I'd be a little surprised because I think there's a couple people who are a little more favorite leading into Mania, but it wouldn't shock me. I'd be like, oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
I agree with you there. And as far as that match, when we come up with our pay-per-view preview here for Chamber, I like the dynamic in that match, and we'll touch on that more, who we think will come out in that one.
Speaking of the Chamber, our next segment on Raw was that Jericho was talking, and he wanted to be in the Chamber because he's a former champion as well. Booker T, of course, says he has to earn it by facing Daniel Bryan, which led to an awesome match, and I was so excited. These are two of my favorite wrestlers on the roster right now. And Jericho, after back and forth with dueling submissions, he hits the code breaker, pins Daniel Bryan, is now into the Chamber on Sunday.
I loved that match as well. I hope we see it a few more times. The code breaker, while it wasn't the most perfectly executed code breaker, that's a great match ender move, especially with a nice back and forth exchange they had. I got a kick out of the Jericho Booker T exchange, with Booker T saying that Jericho needed to impress him. Yeah. I think all he needed to do is list off his credentials, especially compared to Booker T.
Oh yeah, he's the Ayatollah of rock and roller.
He's the first undisputed champion. He beat Rock and Austin in one night. He did mention he's a 6-time world champion. Where
he's the front man of a rock band.
Yeah. He has a good hair. I like his hair.
He knows 1,004 holds.
Booker T main evented a WrestleMania and lost to Triple H for the World Heavyweight Championship. But I wish I wish Jericho would have made a nice little dig on Booker T somehow, because really, I mean, if you compare their careers, Jericho is heads and tails above Booker T, and I thought it was funny that he had to impress the general manager, Booker T.
Well, I think it's hilarious because 3 times this came up. Jericho had to have a match. Kane had to have a match. Ziggler had to have a match. But Jack Swagger, oh yeah, he looked good to me, dog. Let's put him in the chamber. Jack Swagger, of all people, just gets to get put in after he beat like Yoshitatsu or some rinky-dink guy. I don't know. That just made me laugh because it was so ridiculous.
I like the route they're going with Swagger's character, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this real American instead of the all American. I mean, if you think about it, it's what's all over the news now with gun control talk and politics being so divided and divisive. This is perfect. They're bringing in Dutch Mantel as Zeb Coulter.
Yep.
And I mean, Dutch Mantel, a great, legendary wrestling character who is going to be a wonderful mouthpiece for Jack Swagger, and I love that combo. We're talking about Khali as world champion. Jack Swagger was a world champion, and a lot of people forget that. And
for like a day.
And I think his career has been on life support for the last year plus. He has a chance to turn it around, and I think he will turn it around, especially with Mantel's help. Yeah,
he looks good. He's a lot better than when he was hanging out with Ziggler and Vicky a while back. But what did surprise me on SmackDown last week, they had Mysterio in the chamber. Disappeared. Well, no mention of it. No reason given.
He's had about 85 knee injuries and knee surgeries, and he's also good for a failed wellness test every couple of years.
Yeah,
So, I mean, you look at, he's not getting any younger.
No.
Whether it's because of an injury or because of another wellness violation, or maybe it's completely different. Who knows? We'll find out, I'm sure. But Mysterio's a guy, to me, he's that perennial baby face. And guys like that, I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the Big Show Kane flip flopper, where it's like, okay, what week, depending on the week, is whether or not they're a heel or a face. I don't like the guy who appeals to just the little kids. And I think if I was 7, I mean, Mysterio would be awesome. He's a little dude. I'm a little dude. I'd be impressed. Big colors, bright face, mask on the face. That's always cool for the kids. But his character, to me, his character's stale. Anytime he's a part of any match, I'm not impressed. As far as I'm not captured by it. Not to say he's phenomenal. He's great, but to not have him in this is fine. He wasn't going to win anyway. No. So to have someone else in there who potentially could win or potentially get a boost from it is fine. Mysterio, similar to John Cena's character, never changes whether he wins or loses. Yeah. So I'm okay with him not being in this. Same everything. Yeah. And somehow, when he's involved in a match, his opponent magically falls to the second rope.
Anytime a finisher needs to be in a certain place on the ring, it kind of gets a little awkward. Then when they're like rolling or they like tumble into it,
and if you look back on the Royal Rumble, and I think it was Miz and Jericho. It was Jericho for sure, but Mysterio did a double 619 from one side to the other on 2 opponents. For the sake of the story, we'll say it's Miz. But he chose to go to Miz first, or whoever it was first. And he left Jericho sitting there for like 10 seconds. And Jericho, if you watch the replay, Jericho actually takes the time to look behind him to see where Mysterio is, because he's been waiting that long to have the move put on him. Yeah. So it's the same old with Mysterio, and I'm fine with not seeing him in it.
Yeah, me neither. It's not going to... I like to see Swagger in there and see what he can do and give him a shot. He's been off TV for 5, 6, 7 months. So.
Agreed. I think they'll push his character nicely.
So next up, we had 3-man band take on, I've been calling him like the Avengers or, the Justice League or something. We got the 3 biggest faces in WWE right now with Ryback, Cena, and Sheamus. And all I wrote on my notes was yawn.
Yeah. Anytime there's a 3-man band segment, again, they could do something cool with this. I'm not a fan of any of those guys. I wasn't a fan of any of those guys prior to Jinder Mahal. Heath Slater and Drew McIntyre, who Drew McIntyre once deemed the chosen one by Vince McMahon, has little or nothing to show for it. But to just be in this joke group, if you're not going to win a match, although I did see Heath Slater go over in an episode of what's their latest show, Superstars or whatever is online or on one of those D networks. I actually saw him in an actual match, a match where they wrestled for an extended period of time, and he went over in the match, and it was a good match, and I'm using air quotes.
I don't even know what his finisher is.
And I don't either, and I don't even think he does, but anytime they put these joke groups together and all they do is lose, and they're not even funny as joke groups, I wonder, okay, what are they doing? What is the thought process behind this? Especially when you have plenty of people in the back who could benefit from the time out there and at least do something with their character.
Yeah, I mean, there is a role for jobbers, and they need them every once in a while, but I don't know. It just seemed like, all right, we need 3 guys. Hey, there's 3 guys. Let's do it.
Or at least give them instruments. I mean, of course, that's part of the gag where they just go out there and play air guitar, and they don't have any songs. But, I mean, if they could show a segment where they're, playing instruments at some point, I'd maybe believe it. I mean, you've got Jericho, who's a legitimate rock star. I mean, I don't have any of Fozzie's albums, but the man is the frontman of a band. He probably can play a guitar and some instruments. But then you have these other guys who just go out and play air guitar every week, and have nothing to show for them.
There's quite a few joke acts right now. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
Swagger came out, beat the crap out of Zack Ryder, wins with his newly renamed ankle lock called the Patriot Act now.
Love it.
Yeah, it's cool. He's a little more intense. He's got longer hair. He wets it down. And
he's got to lose that singlet. I know they're taking baby steps. He's in the all black singlet now. He got away from the red, white, and blue and the other colors. Like he was wearing that purple and black one for a while. But the dude needs to get in trunks. And I mean, it's not because I want to see more of Jack Swagger. It's just he needs to lose the singlet.
Speak for yourself, man.
He looks like he's wearing like a kid-sized singlet.
Yeah, and it's a little too small on him.
Yeah, and he's got to change the music. The poor man's Rage Against the Machine song has to go.
Like said earlier, him and Zeb Coulter started putting down immigrants. We'll see where that goes. Could be interesting. Might get some good heat.
And if there's anything that the WWE universe doesn't like, it's putting down immigrants.
Yeah. Ziggler talks to Booker, decides he wants to be in the chamber now, but Booker T again says he needs to be Kane to enter the chamber. So that match came right before the final promo with Rock. We had Miz versus Cody Rhodes with Antonio Cesaro on the mic, who then interfered and cost Cody Rhodes the match. And then Cesaro unbelievably just starts whipping him around, smashing him into the... I love Antonio Cesaro. I get excited to watch his matches. I saw a match with him and Sin Cara, I believe was on SmackDown last week. He can do Lucha Libre.
He's phenomenal.
He's unbelievable. He's probably the best, most powerful wrestler they have right now.
He's great, and I first heard of him prior to his run with WWE. He was Claudio Castagnoli. Yeah. I heard him on Colt Cabana's podcast, The Art of Wrestling, and he's an incredibly likable guy. Listened to him on first time I heard that episode, and I listened to it a couple times. I was going on a 6-mile run and just put it on my iPod, and he's a real likable guy, big coffee drinker. I found that out, big coffee drinker, but from Switzerland, really smart, just like they play him off on TV. Several languages, knows 5 languages, and he fell in love with American wrestling, WWE. And WWF at the time, and was befriended by the Honky Tonk Man while training over in Switzerland and starting off in his career. And he's just phenomenal. He's great on the mic. He's an outstanding performer, and I think a good technician. I like everything he's doing.
The very European uppercut that he does.
Yes.
Is my favorite move, and I look for it in every match, and I wait for it, And one of them, like, I can't remember who it was, but they jumped off the top rope from, like, to the outside, and he hit him with it. I'm like, oh, my God.
I've been known to do a couple of Antonio Cesaro fist shimmies like he does when he enters. Big fan of him. I think he will be a long-time champion. I think it's only a matter of time before he gets the WWE title. I mean, there's a log jam, and they, depending on the month, who they're pushing. But I think Cesaro will be a guy who sticks around for years.
I believe so too.
And I think it's going to be a matter of time. And it's only a matter of time. He's doing, of course, the anti-American deal, which is always great to get the fans against you. But eventually he's going to pick up some steam, and they're going to be forced to make him a good guy because he's just, his talent is too strong.
And he's so unique.
Yes.
So different.
Yeah. He could get rid of that treasure trail, though. That is just disgusting.
Oh, no, you got to keep that.
If you say so.
How will you know where the treasure is, otherwise?
I don't want that treasure.
All right. So Miz gets, ragdolled, and then we had another Brodus and Tensei sighting.
Not sure what I think about that yet.
Yeah, I'll give it, I laughed. I have to admit I laughed when he came out in the women's underwear. That actually got me laughing.
I think of the contrast. I see Albert. I can't buy this.
With less hair, yeah.
I can't buy this guy who went over to Japan and had all this success. Of course he did. We know that. But I still see Albert. I see the guy who was Test's tag team partner. I see the guy who was the hip hop hippo, which is kind of what they're doing now. I guess for his sake, it's better than nothing. But to see the push that he got when he entered WWE for this second time,
win over Cena.
where he beat Cena, he beat Punk. And he was this monster, Lord Tensai, and he had Sakamoto.
And no one cared.
And no one cared. And he was this big destructive guy, but now he's getting jobbed. So I guess this is better than being a jobber. So if they're going to do it, fine.
I named them Team Shuck and Jive, which I thought was fun. But the best part of the match was the Naomi and Cameron bit at the end. I can't remember which one. One of them. That's not racist.
No, I just don't know who they are. Just like,
the dancers for Brodus.
Yeah. Oh, I know who they are, but I don't know who the Usos are. Like, I don't know which one's Jimmy and which one's Jay. So unless they're, I never figured out the Bella twins either. So that's fine. If they wear the same outfits or they're not primary prominent characters, I don't know who's who. But yeah, Cameron and Naomi.
One of them,
familiar with them, of course.
Yeah,
I just don't know who's who.
On Main Event had a match. She's in the ring, probably the best female I've seen in years.
Really?
It's incredible. And then I see her do this, and I'm like, oh, she's going to be a big time.
Well, they're going to have to. They've had that mass exodus of Melina, Eve, Beth Phoenix. Michelle McCool. They have. It's like Layla, Natalia. Don't forget Karma was there for about 10 minutes.
Yeah, never had a match.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So, anyways, moving on, we had the Shield come out and they call out the Justice League, and the lights go out. And for a second, I was hoping it was the Undertaker, but it was not.
I thought it was going to be the Undertaker. Yeah. I couldn't figure out why it would be the Undertaker, why he'd be involved with the Shield in any way.
Paul Heyman runs the Shield. He wants at CM Punk, allegedly. Maybe they could have done that, but they didn't.
Yeah, but to me, it would have been a leap at that point. We could put all of those together and say, yes, these elements create the Undertaker coming out. But when the lights went on, I thought it was stupid, though, that it took place the way it did, that it ended up being this Ryback, Sheamus, Cena trio, and that Michael Cole said shades of the Super Bowl. When you're a week late on that, don't mention it. They could have done that a week before. They could have had the Shield do it. They could have had the Shield say that they were the ones behind the blackout at the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And they could have taken advantage of it, but don't be a week late and just say it. Oh, by the way, Michael Cole. Well,
Michael Cole's never been timely, but
no.
The Superman, they get the jump on the Shield, they beat him up, throw him out of the ring. Fair is fair. The Shield got the best of them in the last couple of weeks, so that's fine. Leading into the, you got to have them even and stuff. I had no problem with that, but We'll talk about that more later.
I'm curious to see what happens with that, especially since I didn't see the pay-per-view, or the TLC pay-per-view, so I would like to see the Shield in action. I'd like to see the guys one-on-one,
It was
especially Dean Ambrose.
It was one of the better matches of the year. It was incredible. I was really, really impressed, and I couldn't believe that they put the Shield over. I was so happy about it.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
but
good.
I'm a little worried. They might kill their momentum if they lose, and I don't see how they can win coming up, but I really hope they at least look strong in the loss if they do lose.
Agreed.
Damien Sandow versus Alberto Del Rio. ADR basically wins quick with the cross arm bar, calls out Big Show a little bit. Nothing much there. Bo Dallas then attacks Wade Barrett before his match, and then Barrett goes over on Kofi. Again, they're pushing Bo Dallas, which is cool, coming out at the Rumble and stuff, and at least he's getting a shot. To me, he hasn't really impressed me that much so far, but at least he's getting a shot. And then Ziggler versus Kane. Okay match. AJ kind of cost him the match, which was a neat little angle that's never happened with him before. And Kane is now the final entrant into the chamber.
And of course that probably will lead to eventually the demise of Team Hell No, having Bryan and Kane in the chamber. Of course they're tag team partners. There's no way they're going to cooperate with each other and help each other in the chamber. I'm sure something will happen to lead to their demise.
Yeah,
just like
the Rumble pinning the other one. That's for sure.
Yes,
I'll guarantee you that.
Of course.
Put money on it. Kane really has no chance of winning the chamber, but it would be cool to see him and D-Bry's dynamic in there. And then The Rock, I didn't really understand what the hell he was talking about in his promo. He comes out, talks about crackheads and whatever.
I'm over The Rock being back.
Yeah.
I was enthused about it 2 years ago when he made that return and was hosting WrestleMania. I didn't care about him hosting, but it was good to see him back on TV. But whether you want to give CM Punk the credit or anybody else, I can name, you've got Dean Ambrose, you've got even Daniel Bryan, Antonio Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler. You have guys who can carry a promo, and The Rock is great.
His shtick's getting a little,
he's
long in the tooth.
It is, and he's going to need to bring more substance. And I'm not talking about the substances that he's allegedly putting in his body.
Allegedly,
but with the way promos have been done lately, he needs to I guess follow suit. I don't need him out there. It used to be good enough for him to just make an appearance. His music hits, he makes that physical appearance, people go crazy, and that's all you needed. And you saw how stale it got with Cena, to the point last year where I found myself wanting Cena to get the better of Rock, and I don't think that was WWE's point. During those promos, they were embarrassing. And I know WWE does contradict itself a lot with what it does out of the ring with their campaigns for anti-bullying and reading and all this stuff. But to have The Rock go out there and make several anti-gay references,
cookie puss,
in all of his promos, even last night talking about a Twilight love scene between Paul Heyman and CM Punk, he's starting to look like it's passed him by, or like he's a one-trick pony. And I've tired of it, to the point where if he could show me something Punk-like, where he actually cuts a real promo, that's fine. But to me, if he's going to go out there and just yell catchphrases and have the crowd chant with him, I don't need to see it anymore.
Yeah, make things trend on Twitter. But I'm one of the biggest Rock fans ever, and I agree with that. Watching their stuff leading up to the Rumble was really great. Punk saying his arms are too short to box with God, and I thought those were great, but this just lacked passion and energy and excitement. And
to me, the steam's out of it, because Rock has the title that, to me and to anybody who cares about it, is the biggest title that they fight for. And to have it on a guy who's not a full-time wrestler, it feels weird. To me, it doesn't even feel like a Rock title. I look at it and say, I found myself watching last night and looking at him and thinking, this guy is the champion, and I could not care less.
Mm-hmm.
So something needs to change. They went with the classic stolen belt thing at the end, which is fine, because that goes perfectly with Punk saying he still is the champion.
Day 456 or whatever today.
Whatever it is, yeah. So I'm looking forward to the match, and the match at the Rumble was great. I enjoyed it, and this one should be no different. I'm sure that it'll come out with Rock as the winner, which I don't really care for, because I don't want to see Rock Cena at WrestleMania. But I'm going to watch Sunday's match and enjoy it.
Yeah. So that was Raw. We got SmackDown coming up. I'm sure there won't be much on Friday, or I guess tonight. Yeah, in a couple hours. I'm sure they'll just hold course because they've got pretty much everything set. Since this is our first episode, though, I think we should kind of introduce ourselves a little more, explain our background on just who we are, and maybe say how we got into wrestling, and I'll let you start.
Okay. I'm 31 years old. I've been a lifelong wrestling fan, or at least as long as I can remember. And what did it for me was WWE or WWF. Gosh, it used to take me so long to say WWE because I refused for a while. But WWF.
You could not get the F out.
Yes, yes. Well, I remember those shirts. World Wrestling Federation. It was WWF Superstars on Saturday mornings on ABC. And WDIO TV locally here, and it was the coolest thing. I remember seeing the Ultimate Warrior and Jake the Snake Roberts, Roddy Piper, Hulk Hogan, and I remember thinking this is the coolest thing, and fell in love with it right away. And then prior to this this idea of having main event style matches on every week, all you would get is you'd get promos from the biggest guys, and then you'd get some guys who you knew fight jobbers in squash matches. So, I mean, even then I didn't care, but even as a little kid, I eventually grew tired of that. But Ultimate Warrior is what did it for me. And I mean, people can say what they want about the guy now, and even his I guess overall ability or lack thereof in some areas, but the guy, I mean, he was it for a large number of kids, and he did it. Macho Man, same thing. So Superstars did it for me, and then it was, I think, All American Wrestling on Sundays on USA. I'd come home from church in the mornings, and I'd watch that. I loved that. It was Bobby Heenan, Mean Gene Okerlund, Gorilla Monsoon, and then I want to say, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say it was Primetime Wrestling or something like that on Mondays.
Oh, you're beyond me.
I know. I said I'm 31.
Yeah.
And that was, they'd have an in-studio show, and I think Vince was on it. I think Gorilla Monsoon was on it, and that had a couple of variations, but I think it was Primetime Wrestling, that was cool. They'd have matches, and then they'd have the wrestlers come in, like Rick Rude would come in for a segment and just get heel heat, and they'd have like a studio audience of like 40 people, and then they'd show recorded matches, and that was cool. And then, I mean, I remember watching the first Raw, and
94?
It was 93. 93.
That's
they just had their 20th anniversary.
That's right, yeah.
And I remember not being too pumped about it, because that was the time where that 1993 to 96 range was really kind of a dark time for WWF. And I remember thinking that, it's weird that they're in an auditorium. This looks weird, but I dipped out about age 12. So that would have been 93-ish. I dipped out for a little bit, but then got back into it big time at like 16 years old, so 1997. And then from
NWO was running wild.
And that was the weirdest thing too, was I was forever a WWF guy, never a WCW guy, never an NWA guy before that. And a friend of mine turned me on to WCW because it was at the peak of NWO and Goldberg and DDP, and I got back into it that way. WCW had a house show in Duluth in, I think, the fall of 1998.
I was at that shows.
And I went and enjoyed the heck out of it. Had a great time.
Did Goldberg wrestle at that one? Because I saw Goldberg.
Yes, he did.
Okay.
I want to say he wrestled. Did he wrestle Nash? I could be totally wrong.
I don't know. He won in a couple of minutes. That's all.
Yeah, but Perry Saturn was there. Jericho was there.
Yeah,
and
he ripped up the sign.
Yep.
Yeah, and we were at the same show.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then from that, right when I started watching WCW, I decided, well, hey, I got in by WWF. I'm going to watch WWF too. So I watched WWF. I'd rotate between shows each night. I'd flip channels like a lot of us did. But I was always faithful to WWF. That was where my allegiance lied. And to see that run that built up from 1998 on, this was post WrestleMania, because Shawn Michaels' match with Austin, I didn't see that WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 14. Didn't see that Mania. If we can do the high school math here, 15 years. Yeah, it was 14.
Yeah.
I didn't see that match. Michaels goes away because he has this back injury. He doesn't really come back for another 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
As a wrestler. He'd come back as commissioner and special guest referee.
He came back at WrestleMania 19 against Jericho.
So to see Stone Cold and The Rock lead this charge, it was amazing. I didn't miss an episode of Raw from 1998 to 2002. Wow. No matter what I was doing, I was watching it every way possible, whether it was taping it and watching it later or making sure that there was a TV with cable near where I was going to be. And that was a lot of fun. To backtrack, I guess what I do, I'm a journalist. I work at a newspaper in Duluth, Minnesota, and love that. It's a lot of fun, just writing, reporting, editing. But wrestling's been a lot of fun, and watch it every week. I guess rain or shine, win, lose or draw. No matter what I think of the storylines, I don't know. Maybe I would voice my dissatisfaction by not tuning in sometimes, but I still enjoy it. I enjoy the competition, the matches, the performances, and I know WWE sometimes lacks that because it's so entertainment based that you don't get a lot of wrestling. A lot of it's a quick 2-minute deal in the ring that is, masked as a match, but still I enjoy it. It's fun. I think 3 hours is a bit of a stretch on Monday nights. I've been devoting my time to it, but I think I might start tuning in an hour later or taking a break after an hour.
I DVR the first hour and skip
it's just too much of a commitment, and it's not like they're filling that 3 hours with the wrestling that they could.
Yeah.
Giving their talent the spotlight. They're filling it up with replays of segments that happened that night.
Earlier that night.
Over and over again. Yeah. And or talking about Tout or talking about Twitter, and it's not worth the 3 hour investment.
Yeah.
How about you?
Well, I'm 27 in 364 days. I just graduated from the University of Minnesota Duluth. I was the editor-in-chief of the paper there. I'm an aspiring journalist. Hopefully I'll get to the paying part, because I've usually been on the other end of it, paying for it. I've been a fan most of my life. I was a Hulkamaniac. That's how I got in. I'm not ashamed of it. Many fans who are my age now, that's how they got into it.
Yeah.
I remember actually being upset seeing WrestleMania 6 on videotape and seeing that Hulk Hogan lost. I never thought the guy would lose. I was very upset, and I actually turned against the Ultimate Warrior after that, because I used to love Ultimate Warrior as well. That was a big shot in the gut for me.
And that was I remember hearing about it. I mean, it's not hard to think about those days where news and information didn't travel as quickly. And when you found out that Hulk Hogan lost, Hulk Hogan was pinned. Now, granted, I mean, even then, I don't think we had this idea that wrestling was ever real. And we'll get into that another time, where people say, well, it's not real. Well, yeah, Modern Family's not real either.
Still watch that.
Any show you like on TV isn't real.
It's a performance.
Yeah, and when I found out that Ultimate Warrior won title versus title, Intercontinental Champion versus WWF Champion, when I found out that Hogan lost, I was stunned as well. And I think, I could be wrong, but I think we turned it, we being me and my brothers, turned it to the pay-per-view channel that then would have been scrambled, and to keep it on that channel
and listen to it,
because normally what you do is you would have you turn to a channel that you didn't get, it would automatically turn up until you found a channel that you had. It wouldn't stay on that channel. But what we would do is we'd turn it to like 54, and then we'd shut the TV off quickly, and then we'd turn the TV on, and it would stay on 54. And it was scrambled, and every few seconds a blip of audio would come in. You could kind of tell what was going on. And I did that a lot in my teen years for other reasons, but for this match, I think my brothers and I did it, and I remember doing it for some other wrestling events too, where, again, I wish I had it in front of me. If I had prepared for this, I would have, but it was WrestleMania 6, the same time Savage fought Flair. No, of course that wouldn't have been. Savage beat Flair for the title. So WrestleMania 5?
WrestleMania 7.
Okay.
I believe.
Whatever WrestleMania that was, I did it for that too, because I remember being so happy when the Macho Man pinned Flair. So back to you, your story.
Yeah, well, it's all right. It's all right. So Hogan loses, and I'm upset, and then I heard that they have wrestling on Monday nights, and I started watching that, but my parents didn't really want me watching it. It was kind of late. I was young still. So I kind of missed it for a couple of years, but I was still a Hogan fan, and I heard that he had gone to WCW, and I didn't even know what the hell WCW was, and I kind of knew, like, Ric Flair, but, I always thought it was that lame one, and it looked bad, and it was on some weird channel on cable. And
same here.
Yeah, so I never really watched it. But I did still watch WWF with, like, Doink the Clown and Bret Hart, and I actually saw a house show here with Bret Hart, with The Undertaker in, like, 93. Like, and I remember, and I was right over where they came in, and I could almost touch the Undertaker's hat. Like, that's the only time I've ever seen him fight. But I really, really got into it during the Attitude Era. I was a perfect age. I was like 13, 97, 98, and 14, I hated the NWO. I hated that Hogan was a bad guy. He turned his back on me. I was one of those fans. I was a huge, huge, huge Goldberg fan. And I loved seeing him, and he's still... Well, we'll get to that later. We have our top 10 list, but love the crap out of Goldberg. But at the same time, I was flipping back and forth and watching Stone Cold, because I was a WCW guy at the time, but I would always flip back to see what's going on. And Stone Cold and The Rock, they just got so much better. But I remember the time I was watching WCW, and they had, like, the boy band.
3 count.
Yeah.
Evan Courageous, Shannon Moore, and Jamie Noble, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was them, 3 count.
But I remember watching that and saying I was done. And I didn't watch wrestling for years after that.
Yeah.
And I got back into it when The Rock came back in 2011, a couple years ago, and I've literally watched everything since and trying to catch up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That you went that long between and got back into it. You went from the debut of 3 count to The Rock returning in 2011.
About a decade.
Wow.
And I've literally caught up on everything. I've watched every documentary. I've read everything I can. It's kind of neat going back. I own all the WrestleManias. I really just dove right in, and I'm really excited about it. And so yeah, there's a big chunk there that's missing, but I know pretty much a lot of it.
Amazing.
Yeah. But we do have top 10 lists. I know we're running a little long already. We're at 52 minutes. But we each made a top 10 list of our all-time favorite wrestlers. And I thought maybe we could just go one by one. 10. You'd say your 10. I'll say my 10.
That's perfect.
Okay.
And let's just before anybody disputes it, this is our favorite wrestlers. This isn't the 10 greatest wrestlers of all time. We're not basing this on anything other than the fact that these guys are some of our favorites. Our 10 favorite wrestlers.
10 favorite of all time.
So you want to kick it off with 10?
Sure. This was first off, I want to say this was an incredibly hard thing to do because I feel like I'm slighting people, and I know they're never going to hear about it or care, but I feel like, I don't know, it was tough, especially on a few of these. But number 10 for me was The Undertaker. When I was a young kid, I was actually afraid of the guy.
Yeah.
So that kind of...
As was I.
Yeah. But now looking back, I just respect his work so much, and I look forward to that match every year, even if it's one. Because he always performs, no matter how old he gets, he's still putting on awesome matches. So Undertaker for me was number 10.
My 10 is a guy who's going to get a second reference today, Perry Saturn. I got a kick out of him he was one of the first guys I saw in my return to wrestling, watching WCW. He was part of Raven's flock, and I thought, wow, this guy looks so cool. He's all tatted up. Now everybody's tatted up, but this dude,
he was bald.
He was ahead of the curve.
Yep.
Yeah, he's bald, and now he has a tattoo on his face. He has a Mike Tyson tattoo on his face, or Mike Tyson style tattoo on his right side. But he had the lightning bolts or whatever on the back of his head, top of his head. He's got arms and chest tattoos. But he was cool. I thought he had a good look. He was a good wrestler. And I got a kick out of Raven's flock. I liked
Raven's
that
rules.
I loved their whole demeanor. I thought this dude got me back, or helped get me back into wrestling. And then when he joined WWF along with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Chris Benoit, I thought, oh my gosh. And again, I mean, I followed, and this was back in 2000. I followed wrestling on the internet at that time. I'd go to those dirt sheets, but when I saw those guys in the crowd that night on that Monday night, I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy crap, these four are in WWF now. I thought that was the coolest thing.
That was the Invasion angle, right?
No, the Invasion angle came when WCW was purchased by WWF.
2001.
These guys jumped ship. That was 2001.
Okay.
These guys jumped shipped earlier because Benoit had a falling out with Kevin Sullivan because he ended up stealing Kevin Sullivan's wife.
Oh, you know that.
And then he ended up killing her. But they all jumped ship, and Dean Malenko now is an agent for WWE behind the scenes. But Perry Saturn, number 10, well-deserved honor.
Nice. My number 9, Kevin Nash. And again, I hated the NWO with passion. So mad at the NWO, but I loved the Wolfpack.
Okay.
And Kevin Nash was just super cool. I had a Wolfpack shirt. You know,
of course you did.
I did. It was the big red one. It wasn't the black with the NWO.
Yeah,
it was the big with the black
with the wolf.
Oh yeah, I was in it. Wolfpack mark, and I love Kevin Nash, and I liked him as Diesel as well. And because at the time I hated Shawn Michaels because he was kind of an arrogant prick at the time.
Yeah.
So I loved when he won the title off of him and carried it for almost a year.
I think it was over a little over a year.
Yeah.
Could be wrong, but I think it was.
Yeah.
And I remember Nash from the Diesel days when he made an appearance on MTV's Rock and Jock Softball.
Oh, wow.
And he had the Roman numeral X as his number because he was the headliner at WrestleMania 10.
Yep.
I loved Nash in the WCW versus NWO Revenge video game. He was he was a stud in that game. He had
I have that video game still.
He had the black and the black and red Nash, and then I think he had an all red outfit too. And he was a badass in that one.
Yeah.
And his power bomb, the little corner thing where the corner move where he'd
knees or whatever.
He'd stick his whole boot up there and he'd
like choke him,
and then he'd do like the photographer's camera frame deal with his hands. I respect that pick certainly. My number 9 is Raven. Again, very flock themed top 10 here at the beginning, but Raven, he was the leader of the flock. I loved his look, the jean shorts, and this is the pre John Cena jean shorts, which can go, please go, but the flannel, the sleeveless tee. If you can tell, I'm big into what guys look like as far as their outfits, and that sounds so weird to say that, but to me,
not that there's anything wrong with it.
No, absolutely not. But to be a successful wrestler, you have to have a good look, a look that is appealing. I mean, we talked about Jack Swagger. I think part of him not getting over was the fact that he looked like a poor man's Kurt Angle. Yeah, and
very poor.
And that's with Raven. I liked his kind of like I don't care attitude. Not kneeling down, but he kneeled down occasionally. But like the sitting back and falling down, sitting down in the corner, and just kind of like not caring. The DDT was sweet.
Even flow.
The even flow DDT. So I got a kick out of Raven, and I was sad to see that he didn't get a bigger push in WWF when he came.
His stuff with Punk and Ring of Honor was awesome too.
Yeah, and granted, he's an eccentric dude. He's been around. He's been through several promotions, but he was mainly just that hardcore wrestler for WWF while they still had a hardcore division. But I would have loved to have seen him rise to that main event level that a guy like Rob Van Dam rose to.
Yeah. Well, cool. I like that pick. I'm a big fan of Raven. I always was. Number 8 for me, we talked about him a little earlier, Hulk Hogan. And I was a little surprised that he fell that far, but I think it's kind of, he's overstayed his welcome many, many times. And, his work when I was a kid was awesome, and his stuff in NWO was awesome. And even his return to was it WWE yet?
WWE, yeah.
At the time. And his stuff with Rock, and then Vince McMahon was really awesome too. So
what about Mr. America? Was he Mr. America? Because I don't think we ever found out if he was Mr. America.
Let's not talk about Mr. America. All right, but he was my number 8. How about yourself?
My number 8, Billy Gunn. And I love Billy Gunn. I love the fact that he still looks exactly the same today as he did
with a little
13, 14 years ago. But I mean, the dude's fit. I mean, you look at Road Dogg, looks like a bloated version of Road Dogg. Mm-hmm. Like if you back with the WWF WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy video games for N64, mm-hmm. you could customize guys, and you could change everything on them, including you could make them fatter.
Oh, really?
And that's what Road Dogg looks like now. Is like a fat version of the Road Dogg in that game. Billy Gunn looks exactly the same. And to me, this guy had everything, but he never quite could get over that hump. And WWF tried. He had that run as the one Billy Gunn. He was the Intercontinental Champion. He had feuds with The Rock, but he never quite was able to get over to be that main event guy. But you can't take anything away from him. He's an incredible tag team wrestler, a great guy in the ring. He's one of my favorites of all time. In the video games, I picked him a lot. I just think he was awesome. His name was Badass. He had Badass Billy Gunn. Then he was Mr. Ass.
Yes.
That is the coolest name ever. He came into the ring with lips on his tights. He would point to his ass. I mean, the guy was awesome. So Billy Gunn is my number 8.
Nice. My number 7, Bret Hart. Excellence of execution. This one's more out of respect for the guy. Like, as I go back and watch the WrestleManias and I go back and watch everything, just incredible work. He was the face of the company for a long time. Fan favorite. He'd give the little sunglasses. And then to have everyone who cheered for him hate him just a year later that's how you pull a heel turn. WrestleMania 12 with the double swerve.
I'll believe you. I can't remember.
Against Stone Cold? I believe that's right. 12 or 13?
Well, 13 would have been in 1997. And of course, Survivor Series was later that year, 97. So did he fight Austin that year? Or did he fight him the year before in 96? I can't remember.
Me out.
Hardcore wrestling fans, please forgive us for being not on top of it. We don't have Google in front of us.
I think it was 13, now that I think of it. One of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. You got Stone Cold bleeding out of his face, not tapping to the submission. The double swerve, Stone Cold goes on to become the super face, and Bret Hart becomes a super heel. One of the hottest heels of all time. Just awesome work. So
I'm going to have to rewatch that match, because that took place during my wrestling dark period where I had checked out, but I've seen a replay of that. I should watch that again to get full appreciation for it.
It holds up.
My number 7 is the guy who first got me into it, and that's the Ultimate Warrior, larger than life character. I don't care what he's like today. I don't care that he couldn't perform in the ring like Chris Benoit or Daniel Bryan or Ric Flair or any other person who's ever been in the ring. He may have been the biggest dick in the world. He may have been awful to work with. I don't care. The dude, he had this amazing look. I just remember seeing this dude sprinting to the ring to rock music with face paint and big hair and those big boots with the frills. And he'd shake the ropes.
Yeah.
The guy was an animal. And that's why he's my number 7 of all time. He's one of my favorites, and the guy who really got me hooked on wrestling.
No arguments here, man. You can't go wrong with Ultimate Warrior. My personal number 6 is probably the only guy who debuted beyond like 1999, and it's CM Punk.
Okay.
Definitely my current favorite wrestler on the roster. I respect him. Every time he's on, I get excited to see what the hell he's going to say, because you never know. My jaw almost hit the floor when he said he was going to box with, your arms are too short to box with God. I'm like, holy crap, who comes up with that line? I really think he's trying to do good work and make change in the WWE that's needed, and he's definitely one of my favorites.
Agreed. My number 6, Chris Jericho. I followed Chris Jericho from his time in WCW, and his look with the long hair with the palm tree ponytail top thing, and he was such an arrogant jerk. And to come out and declare that the show is his, Monday Night Jericho, and that he had Jerichoholics, and he'd rip people's signs, and he had Ralphus with him at times, that big fat dude. Does this ring a bell at all? No?
I think I hear a bell.
Yeah, that's you remembering Ralphus.
Yes.
And I can't think of a guy whose character was able to evolve over time and always be rock solid. We had his feuds with Dean Malenko, where Dean Malenko was the man of 1,000 holds, and Jericho declared that he was the man of 1,004 holds, and then he proceeded to list off
armbar,
the number of holds.
What was it? The moss-covered something rotundo,
family credenza, which I think ended up being Perry Saturn's finisher in WWE. But Jericho was great, and then to come over as Y2J in '99, even though everybody who was watching knew that Jericho was making his debut May 1999 to interrupt the Rock's segment. That was the coolest thing, the countdown to the millennium, and the fact that here 14 years later he's still Y2J. And watching that Vengeance pay-per-view in 2001, when he became the first undisputed champion, we had, to recap, Rock versus Jericho in one semifinal for the WCW Championship. Rock is the champion.
Immediately after that match.
Yeah. So then you have, earlier in the night, you have Stone Cold versus Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. And I believe Austin was the champion going into that match against Angle.
I'd have to look
I think
it
he
up.
was. Angle was one of my favorites, and of course this was during the time that Triple H was injured. So really, WWF's current 4 big guys are in that match, and I think everybody thought it's going to be Rock versus Austin. It has to be, because you're declaring this person the first and only first time undisputed champion. You're unifying the belts. It has to be one of those 2 guys who have been the face of your company. So for Austin to go over on Angle, you saw it coming. And then I remember seeing Jericho win against Rock, and I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe this. And right away, Jericho, still winded from the match, still laying down, boom, the glass shatters, and you see Austin coming.
Yeah, I think he passed Rock on the way, into the ring, like...
It was awesome. And then for Jericho to win, I wasn't even sad about Austin losing, because it was such a surprise to have Jericho be that first undisputed champion.
And that's what people want nowadays, which we don't get. But anyways, number 5 for me, guy we were just talking about, Stone Cold Steve Austin. The man, like Vince McMahon himself said, basically the greatest of all time. You can't debate it. I don't even need to list my reasons. Stone Cold, definitely top 5 guy for me.
My number 5 guy I just talked about, Kurt Angle. This guy, what he was able to accomplish in such a short time entering WWE is amazing. I mean, he won everything. IC title, European Championship, WWE Championship, and none of it was a stretch. None of it was a reach. I mean, it felt like he deserved it. When Sheamus won the WWE Championship for the first time a couple years back, or 3 years now, I think, it seemed like it wasn't quite time. When Miz won, it wasn't quite time. And I mean, some would say it still isn't time. But with Angle, in like 8 months or 9-10 months, he won all of these titles, and it felt like he deserved it. And then to granted, he's had some well-documented issues with substance abuse and domestic abuse and stuff, but in the ring, I mean, the man's a machine. He came back from neck injuries. He's a guy who, he's in TNA now, and he's the one guy I still wish was in WWE. He's missed the last 7 years.
He's still putting on great matches.
And he's great. He's phenomenal. Shame on me, I don't catch TNA enough, and I don't fully appreciate their product as much as I should, but Kurt Angle is the guy that WWE, I think, sorely misses him.
Oh, big.
And WWE's failure to recognize its own history, that's the thing I'm talking about. Grudges they'll hold, or if other people are under contract somewhere else. They did it to Foley, they did it to Flair, they're doing it to Angle. I don't know if they're contractually obligated to not recognize these people sometimes, but to ignore it because they're with another company, I think, is a mistake. It's been something they've done for years.
Yeah.
But Angle, to me, the guy made an immediate impact, and it's been a lasting one, especially, and that surprised me, especially because of the injuries he has endured, that he's still, in 2013, one of the best wrestlers, period.
Oh, easy. Number 4 for myself is The Rock, the great one, the most electrifying man in all of sports entertainment. Again, along with Stone Cold, I don't really have to say much about him. He easily one of the greatest of all time. I love The Rock. If I had written this list 3 years ago, Rock would have probably been number 1.
Okay.
And I think that's why. I mean, it just feels a little tired to me. But I love the crap out of The Rock. I between Rock and Stone Cold, I was always a Rock guy.
Mm-hmm.
It was like you had to either be a Beatles guy or a Rolling Stones guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, same with Rock and Stone Cold, and I chose Rock, and that's why he's one ahead of Stone Cold.
Okay. My number 4 is the Macho Man Randy Savage. He is one of the guys who, to me, was able to sustain my attention throughout their entire career. I followed him into WCW as well when I started tuning into Nitro. He was part of NWO, and he still managed to be an individual while in NWO, where Hall and Nash, they were the outsiders. They were one. I mean, they were one. And Hulk Hogan, while he was very much an individual, he was the leader of that group, and he had a lot to do with a lot of the characters in that group. But Macho Man was still kind of that individual. He had that harem with Gorgeous George and Miss Madness, and he looked phenomenal. I mean, the dude, it may have, and probably was one of the reasons why he's no longer with us. I mean, dying of a heart attack while driving and being injured, but I mean, you can only wonder, what he was putting into his system to have the physique he had. But the dude looked phenomenal. It was a shame. It was a shame when he died. Just the fact that he died, period. But especially when he did, he and WWE had recently, buried the hatchet for whatever animosity the two parties had from his parting ways with the company when he did in the early 90s. But he had done a commercial for WWE All-Stars, the video game that was coming out at the time. And it was Macho Man in character, but it was the first time we ever saw like the bald, gray-bearded Macho Man, and he was still phenomenal. And he was a guy that I admired. My dad saw him eating breakfast in a hotel room. In a hotel room. No, that is not right. In a hotel restaurant. That would have been something if my dad was in a hotel room with Liz and Macho Man. Hopefully Lex Luger wasn't there too, but he said he saw Liz and Macho Man, and he said Macho Man was just massive, just muscular dude. And I think that he's one of the all-time greats, and he's still to this day one of my favorites. I mean, the guy was in the ring and on the mic, phenomenal, and one of the best ever.
Oh, especially for his time. He was just, so over the top.
Absolutely.
Number 3, HBK, Shawn Michaels. Greatest in-ring performer of all time, not even in question. If you go and look back at like Pro Wrestling Informer.
Informer.
Is it
Yeah.
Informer?
Yeah, PWI.
PWI, like match of the year like 12 times. Like wrestler, it's he's just the guy. He had all that emotion. You never question what was going through his head during a match. He just was able to connect with the crowd like no one other. And again, he was a guy who I hated when I was younger, and I appreciated that I hated him later on in life because I realized how good he was at his job. And I wish he was still wrestling today. That's how much I love the guy.
I probably don't appreciate him as much as I should, but he did and does have the greatest entrance music of all time. I mean, that his music survived.
Oh yeah,
that era of everybody having. I mean, he really had he was one of the first to have like a real he sang his own theme song.
Yeah,
that's
who
amazing.
does that?
But that his started in that era his really started in that era where I started watching wrestling.
Yeah, early 90s.
He was a rocker when I started watching,
yeah.
But I remember when he came out with that music when he was with Scary Sherry, and that it survived and did not evolve or change through the Attitude Era and to today. I mean, it's a standalone, just unbelievable. And it's ironic because Jim Johnston, who does a lot of the WWE songs and music, I mean, I don't know what role he had in that song. I could go back and look, but I mean, he sings in a lot of the songs now and has for years and plays the instruments, so maybe he did play the guitar in that. He probably did. But the fact that this Shawn Michaels singing his entrance song has lasted so long, it's an awesome song. But he's great. He did not make my top 10 because he's just when he was the real life dickhead Shawn Michaels, he fell out of favor with me and never quite got back into my favorite group. But I've thoroughly enjoyed his matches, especially since his career was done. It was over. And then he came back in 2002, which I think was going to be a part-time deal. And he started wrestling every week. And I remember finding myself, I think in 2003 or 2004, watching Raw. And I'm like, Shawn Michaels wrestles every week. This is awesome. So I have a great appreciation for him.
Yeah.
Oh, it's me.
Yes, number 3.
My number 3. My number 3, again, just like if something happens anytime in sports now, people are like, that's the greatest ever. And we lose sight of it just because it's so close to us. We lose sight of what was in the past. But I still think CM Punk is one of the best all time. Yeah. He's one of my favorite. He's one of my favorites of all time, which is why he's on this list. He's my number 3. He has done. I'm not going to sit here and say I was a Punk fan back when he was wrestling in backyards. No, but I remember when I was reading those dirt sheets back in 2000, 2001. Someone wrote, I remember it was a black background and they had green hyperlinks. I don't know what the hell it was. If it was it was a glorified GeoCities page. Yeah. And someone was saying that CM Punk was going to be the next Triple H, in that he was going to be this guy who gets all these in-ring accolades, and that he's going to be a huge star. And I remember hearing that name, CM Punk. So I googled him right after that, and saw the Pepsi tattoo and the G.I. Joe Cobra tattoo, and thinking, this guy's got a unique look. He's got the straight edge tattoo on the stomach, and I heard about him a little bit after that, and then didn't hear about him for a while. And then when he made his debut on that new version of ECW in 2006, I thought, oh my gosh, I know who this guy is. And he got a massive...
So you're like a hipster wrestling fan?
Yeah, and I'm not, I didn't watch Ring of Honor. I didn't go to St. Paul shows where he and Colt Cabana were wrestling. Mm-hmm. I didn't do any of that. I didn't trade tapes or anything. But when he came in 2006, I saw, okay, I can see why people thought this dude has it, because he does. And he was lost in that SmackDown shuffle for a while, but the stuff he did with Straight Edge Society, the guy's a great fan favorite, and he's a great heel. He's so good that even though he's one of my favorites now, I still effing hate him sometimes, because he's such a good bad guy, and you have to love him for it, and you have to hate him for it, because he's doing his job so well. You have to say, okay, I will hate you, because I should hate you. So I'm going to, because you're good at making me hate you. And I think he's doing a great job. He's the best thing right now. and he's the only guy they have who goes off script. I mean, whether it's talking to Michael Cole during his match with The Rock, or talking back to the fans,
yelling
the things he says, where you say, hey, I know exactly what he's talking about. Where maybe 85% of the people watching might have no clue what he said, what he's even talking about, because it's real. I get a kick out of that, and he knows, he's so aware. He has more awareness than anybody there today, if ever, and I think he's awesome. The fact that he was able to not just hang with, but easily beat The Rock when it came to promos leading up to the match. Not a lot of guys could. You saw Cena fall back in those promos last year because people were against Cena and wanted The Rock back so badly. Mm-hmm. Now that we've seen The Rock wrestle a few times, and I mean, he's great, but Punk has that advantage where we've seen what The Rock could do. We saw the whole Cena feud, but now, I mean, Punk has invested in every category, I think. I mean, other than, the muscle category, but I mean, Punk has proven that's irrelevant. I mean, the guy's just flat out awesome, and he's one of my all-time favorites, and I can't wait to see what he does for the next 5-10 years. I mean, we'll see how long his career goes. I don't know what he plans on doing, but he's tremendous, and big fan.
I can't disagree at all. Number 2 is a guy you already listed and was serious consideration for number 1, and it's Y2J, Chris Jericho. Again, a guy I used to hate when he ripped it up. I thought he was a jerk, but then he did that stuff with Goldberg, WCW, and Jericho won, Goldberg 0.
And he choked Goldberg out for real in real life.
They actually hate each other like more than you probably should. Yeah. But I just loved him from his WCW days to WWF to WWE to now. I don't think I've ever marked out harder than at the Royal Rumble this year when he came out at 2, and I'm so happy. I'm going to WrestleMania, and I
should mention that.
Yeah, yes. I'm going to WrestleMania this year. It's my first WrestleMania. I've only been to two WWE shows in my life. I went to Raw last year in and I went to a house show in 1993.
They're fun. I went to Raw last year, and then I think from like 99 to 2001 I went to maybe like 6 or 7 Raws, SmackDowns, or house shows, and had a great time at every one.
But I'm going all out. I got my floor seats. I'm going to Access. I got my tickets for Monday Night Raw the next night. I'm driving to New York. It's a 20-hour drive. I'm pumped, and I was so excited to see Jericho because it meant I got to see him wrestle at WrestleMania. And I didn't think he was coming back. And he
awesome.
Got me. He even said, he goes, I got you guys. And I'm awesome. Like, yeah, you did.
That's awesome.
So Chris Jericho at number 2.
Yeah, kudos to him, too, for being able to, I think, smartly take a chunk of time off away from wrestling and whatever you have to do, whether it's get fit, get right, heal up.
DDP yoga.
Yeah, and I mean, and props to him for being able to find success outside of wrestling as well. But for him to come back again and look great and perform just as good as he ever has, I mean, love watching him, and it's a treat to be able to watch him every time. Okay. My number 2, The Rock. I think that will tell you who number 1 is, but The Rock, I think, is probably responsible for helping wrestling gain more fans, along with my number 1, than anybody else. I mean, of course, you've had Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Undertaker. A lot of those guys had sustained success, long period of time through some lean years with WWF. But The Rock took it to another level. He brought us things that we hadn't seen before, or at least I'm talking as a 31-year-old guy, a guy born in 1981. I mean, so this isn't to take anything away from Ric Flair or anybody prior to that, who, I mean, whether it's the Road Warriors or a bunch of dudes that Harley Race. I'm sure there were things that were happening. Jerry Lawler that were monumental in the 70s, but The Rock he really, I think the reason that the Attitude Era is so beloved and often forgiven. Some people have said, and I think I agree with them, that the Attitude Era is overrated. And I mean, I remember I watched week after week of television, and there were some bad shows.
Oh, no doubt.
There were some terrible wrestlers. There was some terrible wrestling. There were some terrible ideas. But there were more hits than misses, and that's usually why WWF and WWE have been successful, is that they've had more hits than misses. When they've hit big time. And The Rock was a monster hit.
It was a grand slam.
Just awesome. I mean, I hated him when he was bad with the corporation. I hated him. Even though he was so good, I hated him, and that's what they wanted. Yeah. And then when he was the people's champion again, and kind of that, I mean, if it wasn't for Austin, Rock would have been looked at as the anti-hero. But Rock, I mean, he's one of my all-time favorites. He's awesome. He's still awesome. He's a tremendous wrestler. I love watching him wrestle. Guy's phenomenal. Again, just like Billy Gunn, I'm glad. I don't care what he's taking. He looks better than he ever did. I mean, the guy's 40 and he looks phenomenal. So I'm happy because in wrestling you see so many guys get recycled and come back and they just look terrible physically and in-ring performance-wise. But Rock looks great. I could watch this dude wrestle all the time. I wish he wrestled full-time. I know he's never going to. He'd be stupid to. There's no reason to.
It's too much risk.
I mean, that'd be like me going back to. I'm not even going to make this comparison because it would sound preposterous, but there'd be no reason to. It'd be like going down to another level of doing something. But the physical toll it takes on your body wrestling. I mean, make your movies, dude. No worries. But if he's going to come back a couple times a year, that's cool. I'm curious to see how this title thing is going to end up, but we'll see. So there's my number 2.
Cool. My number 1 is probably an odd pick if you ask a normal wrestling fan, but Bill Goldberg was my guy. Like he is my number 1.
What was that win streak? Was it
173? Okay. No, until he got tased by freaking
that cattle prod. That cattle prod by Scott Hall.
Well, unbelievable. But
it took a cattle prod to bring down the Hebrew Hammer.
He physically, I mean, I've never seen a guy do what he can do.
I didn't know that men or women could get trapezius muscle. Is that trapezius right there?
Yeah.
That thing, like it was like a double
his neck. Yeah, he just
like his neck had a neck like he had a neck brace. Like for a neck.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. Like built-in headrest.
He just a physical specimen. He had the intensity, the awesome. He'd bang his head, he'd be bleeding, he'd come out, the sparks, he'd breathe the freaking, out of his nose, and, the music, the dun,
But the thing I didn't like about Goldberg is he was late all the time, because constantly they were having to knock on his door to tell him he was up for a match.
Come on, man.
Just
somebody
5 minutes, Goldberg. 5 minutes sooner. Get ready, get those boots on 5 minutes earlier, get out to Gorilla, you hear your music, you come out. The fact that they had to wait for him, I think was annoying. That's all. He just needed to be on time. That's all.
Well, beyond that, he's still my number 1. I just loved everything about it. His entrance, the music, the chants, the spear. God, I love the spear. I mean, he would just lay people out with that spear.
My biggest beef with Goldberg, though, the jackhammer. The jackhammer. The problem with that was in the WCW versus NWO Revenge video game. Because the jackhammer ultimately ends in a pin, it was a waste of a move. Because if you were good, you could get 2, maybe 3 special moves off at one time before it wears out. Scott Norton had just this monster powerbomb and clothesline. No, he had a powerbomb as a regular move, and then he had this monster clothesline that he'd do, which would just decimate people. You could get like 2, maybe 3 off. Goldberg would pin a guy, so you'd have to kick out of the pin yourself and then try to pick him up again and whatever. It was a waste. So that was my beef with Goldberg.
Well, if that's your only beef, that's not too bad. But I mean, the spears that he had, I was the other night I was watching like the best of his spears, and it would just lay people out. You never.
Did they show Brittany?
The
best of Spears.
Oh God,
they really have a best of Spears DVD? Are you kidding me?
No, no, it was just.
Oh, I thought this was like
a compilation on YouTube.
I thought this was a WWE video.
No,
like
I would buy
Best
it.
of Spears, because I'm sure that's due out any time.
Oh,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. You won't.
Today the Best of Nitro came out, so. Maybe,
Oh, that's right. That's right. Good segue.
But just awesome, and his run in WWE wasn't, people didn't seem to care about it, but. It was awesome. Like his chamber match, he speared Jericho through the chamber. He was breaking glass to get to Triple H, who was trying to hide from him. His jackknife on Randy Orton almost put him through the ring. He hit him so hard. I just loved to see it. It felt real. It felt like he was really he was, because he was.
I have 2 beefs with Bill Goldberg. My other one was he ended the career of Bret Hart. That was. I know you can't help that. He didn't do it intentionally, but I wonder sometimes if that contributed to Bret Hart's health problems with his stroke that happened shortly
after. I agree.
That.
That's bad.
Because you see Bret Hart now. You saw him at the Rumble. He looks
rough.
He looks brutal, and I hope he's healthy. I hope he's okay, but. I really think that we lost some significant years out of Bret Hart's career, and that's just me selfishly talking. But no, Goldberg, I can understand why he'd be your favorite, especially for you to check back into wrestling. Mm-hmm. Or no, you didn't check back in at that point. That was when I did. But he was awesome for a while, and I was shocked to see him come to WWE because for so long he said he wouldn't. I was happy to see.
I guess.
I was happy to see him do it,
yeah.
And while I don't think they did everything they wanted to or should have with him that I wanted them to do with him, it was all right. Who would have thought that Goldberg-Lesnar WrestleMania 20 match would have been what it was? I would have never thought it would have turned out.
That's a bummer,
ended up like that. But
everything before the Rumble, he came in just spearing guys left and right. That was cool. I just love Goldberg. Number 1.
Yeah, my number 1 is Stone Cold Steve Austin. The guy. He revolutionized wrestling, I think. I don't want to say more than Hulk Hogan did. Hulk Hogan certainly took it from the dark ages to the mainstream. I've lost a ton of respect for Hulk Hogan. He did not make my top. I don't think he'd make my top 50. To me, the Hulk Hogan that existed back in the pre-WCW days, that guy's gone. He's just. That Hogan Knows Best show sucked, and I think you got to see the real guy, the real human being, and that ruined the wrestler character for me. But Stone Cold, the guy, he to this day, I think because his career was cut short due to injuries, and because he wrestled seldom on regular TV because of injuries, I think his character and his legend is greater. Mm-hmm. I remember every time I got to see a Stone Cold match, it felt exciting. I felt like I was watching something special because he had many Raw appearances where all he'd do is talk, or he'd beat somebody up, but he didn't have a match all the time because he was ailing with his knees, ailing with his neck. We're talking about a man who broke his neck, had surgery, missed a year, and came back and looked phenomenal, but then again had his career cut short due to his neck injuries. He had the foul mouth. He really gave Raw and WWF that jolt, that holy crap, that attitude. And he is the man responsible for it. WWE was so spoiled to be able to have him and The Rock as those guys pushing and plowing through, and then right behind them, Undertaker, Mankind, Triple H,
Shawn Michaels.
We could go on for Edge. More in, I guess, later years, Edge really kind of developed beyond that tag team character, but
Gangrel.
I don't want to mention Gangrel when talking about my favorite wrestler of all time. But Stone Cold, he is awesome. Just this guy in plain black trunks, stomping ass and drinking beer and winning championships and just doing everything you want to see. Yeah. He'll kick anybody's ass. He doesn't care who it is, and he's the reason that wrestling is what it is. People say it's in a bad state, but he gave it a chance to continue to grow. Mm. He gave it a chance to continue to see large amounts of success on a big stage. The guy, I think wrestlers today, I think a lot of the guys who wrestle today that are around our age are going to say that, Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of my biggest influences. He made me fall in love with wrestling or want to be a wrestler, because I mean, the guy, he's untouchable, and I bet the guy could still wrestle today in one match at least.
I would love to see it.
And I don't think he will, and I kind of hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
I know at his Hall of Fame induction, they were chanting the one more match thing. He goes, no, I'm done. It's over with. And I give credit to anybody who does that, because you have to feel a pull, because so many guys do it, whether it's for financial reasons or for feeling
he's set financially. He's not worried about that.
Or if it's to feel that surge of electricity from the crowd. To me, having anybody else other than Stone Cold as number one would be a disservice, and I can't say enough about that guy.
How about a Goldberg versus Stone Cold match?
The Battle of the Balds. I mean, that got teased. Did they ever fight?
They never fought.
Okay.
And Goldberg said he would come back for one match if he could fight Stone Cold.
Okay, I see.
I would pay to see that, even still.
We've had that match. It was WrestleMania. I think it was WrestleMania 19 for the GameCube. That's when they had that like super roster of, it was like Brock Lesnar, Stone Cold, Hulk Hogan, and then guys like they had, the Hurricane. I mean, they had this mix of like all these WCW, ECW, WWF guys. Goldberg was in it, Scott Steiner, the Dudleys, and that was really where you could have those matches, and it was realistic, which is kind of a shame that they had all those guys and they didn't have those rivalries and feuds.
Some good matches.
Oh, they absolutely did.
But I have to apologize. We are at 134.
We are. We did not expect to go this long at all.
We I don't know. Should we just write about our preview?
Should we just let's give a quick Reader's Digest preview. I mean, super quick.
How about we'll just do picks?
Yeah, we'll go. How about World Heavyweight Championship, Del Rio versus Big Show?
I'm gonna go Del Rio somehow.
Okay, I'm gonna say Del Rio will win, and then Ziggler will cash in and win.
I
think Dolph Ziggler will win that championship. WWE Championship. All right, let's wait for that one. Sheamus, Cena, Ryback versus The Shield.
It's hard to pick against the faces in this one. I'd love to see The Shield win. I really think Cena's gonna end up getting the pin because they need to keep him big for Rock, coming up.
I don't know what the long-term storyline will be with these guys and everything, but so I'm going to say that the Sheamus, Cena, Ryback crew wins this one just to get one, because I can't remember the last time Ryback won a big match.
Before his CM Punk.
Yeah, so I think they'll get this one. If they have it, Women's Championship, Divas Championship, Kaylen, the champion, versus Tamina Snuka. Did you know she's Jimmy Snuka's daughter?
Yeah, I did.
What do you think?
Caitlin's only defended the belt like once.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stick with Kaitlyn, but Tamina has impressed me lately, so I can see it going either way.
This might be the match they have as the bathroom break match, or maybe a pre-show match. But yeah, probably bathroom break match. I'm going to go Kaitlyn. Pre-show probably be Cesaro versus Miz for the U.S. title. I'm going to stick with Cesaro on that.
Cesaro, yeah, he wouldn't lose the belt on YouTube.
No, and we'll go the Elimination Chamber match, 6-man for the number one contender spot for the World Heavyweight Championship. We've got Mark Henry, Kane, Daniel Bryan, Jack Swagger, Randy Orton, Chris Jericho. Who do you have?
Jericho. I could see a couple other guys possibly winning it, but I believe what you said with Ziggler cashing it in, and then Jericho winning this, and then they fight at WrestleMania, which would be an awesome match.
I think that's exactly what we're going to get. I've heard rumors of Undertaker fighting somebody for the World Heavyweight Championship and winning it and retiring. I don't see that. I see Jericho versus Ziggler for the title, so I see Jericho winning this chamber match, and I think he should. I think you're going to see maybe the disintegration of Kane and Bryan in this one, or at least a teaser for it.
Another teaser.
And then we have our WWE Championship match, Punk Rock 2. I guess the stipulation is that if The Rock gets disqualified, or if he gets counted out, he loses the title. One scenario I always think of when this happens is somebody coming out and intentionally beating up Punk.
Yes.
To DQ
and that's
The Rock.
Immediately what I thought of.
So what do you think?
It seems odd that they would add that stipulation if they weren't going to do anything with it. So I think it all depends on The Undertaker. If The Undertaker's coming back, The Rock wins. Rock goes on to face Cena one-on-one. If The Undertaker is not coming back, CM Punk somehow wins with the stipulation, has the belt. Rock gets his rematch in the rematch clause at WrestleMania with John Cena. It'll be a triple threat.
That's a good call, and I hope that's the scenario because I would love to see Punk be the champion again.
Mm-hmm.
He should be, and triple threat match to me seems ideal because if you're going to have Rock Cena too, one we saw once in a lifetime last year, and two, what do you do with Punk then? He's kind of just left where he has been the face of wrestling for the last year plus. He's just going to like get a throwaway match or be involved in a storyline that really doesn't matter. And to me, if you're not fighting for the title, you're in a storyline that doesn't matter at WrestleMania.
Well, an Undertaker match.
But the winner's guaranteed to me. And I understand I understand that wins don't necessarily make a character. I mean, sometimes you don't need to win. You can look great in a losing effort and they can advance your character. But to me, if they had Punk end the streak, that's the only way Punk versus Undertaker makes sense to me at WrestleMania.
I could see it happening though.
I would love to see that because that would be a tremendous show of respect by the Undertaker. You have this guy who's been demanding respect on TV as a character and even in real life. And if he got that, and that'd be the ultimate respect, getting an Undertaker loss. Yeah.
So that's our card. Go ahead and comment and maybe leave your predictions or maybe your top 10 list, your personal top 10 list. We've enjoyed doing it. I'm really glad we were able to.
I'm looking forward to this. Thank you for bearing with us over the last hour 40 plus minutes. Yeah. We're looking forward to continuing this weekly. We'll be recording on Tuesdays and posting as soon as we get done, or as soon as possible. And follow us on Twitter at Immortals. PCast,
yes.
And also, I'm on Twitter at Jimmy Bellamy, JIMMY BELLAMY. And what are you, Matt?
I'm at 97Bush, and Bush is spelled like the beer, not like our ex-president's. BUSCH, 97Bush.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the week, and we will be talking to you next week.
All right.